Hey guys, still waiting on the snow to melt, and I wanted to wait and do this video until the snow had all melted because I thought it would clean off this car a little bit to where it would look a little bit better when I did this video. I can't take my sunglasses off. I gotta have those on. It's too bright out here otherwise. So obviously the snow, and we got like 8 to 10 inches, or 10 to 12 inches actually in some spots, depending on, where you step. And the car was covered and doesn't look any different from before it snowed. So I guess we'll have to have some pretty good rains on it to clean it off and all that stuff. But I wanted to drop in and make this video and let everybody know that I have decided to keep this Pontiac. I have decided that when the time comes, I will tear it down, clean it up, rebuild it, get it running again, make it just like it rolled off the factory floor. And I thought a lot about it. I really heavily considered sending it off to a good home. It was never going to go to a junkyard. That was never anything that was going to happen. It was always going to go somewhere where someone would have taken care of it, if it was going to go anywhere at all. And I looked around, just some basic looking, and I figured, it seems like I can get a lot of the parts still. A little expensive. Some of them might be a little challenging to find. And there's a couple groups out there that seem like they're still pretty interested in these old Pontiacs. So it looks like I'll have some resources to work with if I need to find some parts that are a little challenging, right? And you can still get the service information. You can still get the parts books. And there are some similar models, not just of Pontiac, but also of, I think, Chevrolet and Oldsmobile as well. That there's some interchangeability of some of the hard parts if I needed to change that around. That's my understanding. This is just preliminary looking, nothing too deep, nothing too advanced. Well, I don't know what that was. I don't know if you guys heard it. Something went off in the building there. Wonder if it was a raccoon or maybe a bird hit something and it scared the others. But anyway, back to the point. Looking at all that stuff and thinking about it, I've decided that this would be a good car to go ahead and keep and restore. And I also, one of the things that helped me make that decision was that, everything's here. More or less, everything is here. And there's a lot of people that have restored cars with a lot less to work with. But the engine's here, the transmission's here, the wheels, the axles, everything's here. This wasn't stripped for parts. It was left to rot, but not outside. So, it's not completely rusted out or anything. And it wouldn't require a hell of a lot of body work, I don't think. Just some paint. I don't know that I'd do the paint, but I do pretty much everything else. I might have somebody else paint it. But anyway, all that sort of stuff I thought about and I looked at and I've been considering for the past 3 weeks. And I ultimately have decided that, yes, I'm going to keep this car and I will restore it. Now, this might disappoint some of you, but I am not going to get to this project for at least 3 years, probably 3 at least. And that is because there's so much other stuff that needs to be done around here. We have so many other things to improve. We have all sorts of other machines and equipment that are way more important than this Pontiac that need to be fixed, and they need some pretty serious repairs as well. And this is not a practical use of my time at this moment. To restore this. This would never be used as anything other than basically kind of a toy, essentially. So don't get excited like I'm going to be getting on this in the next few months. No, it's going to be a few years at least. And in that time, when I get bored, I'll just kind of do some more research on it and gather some information when I can, maybe some service books and stuff like that. Kind of get some parts put together maybe if I have the cash to spare, and just kind of start collecting everything that I'll need so that when I start on it, I can move along pretty quickly. So all that being said, I do welcome additional comments and input from Pontiac enthusiasts. If you see this video, please do leave a comment, send me an email, whatever. I'm more than willing to accumulate information in preparation for this project, and I would think in at least 3 years, I'll have quite a bit of information that I can go about this with a good deal of efficiency and knowledge so that I don't tear anything up or ruin anything. So that's the big announcement, and there is a little more that I want to talk about here if you're willing to bear with me, but that was the important part I wanted to get out of the way first. So this car, for those of you that don't know, this sat in the shop that we have here, the old Butler building, and it sat there for a long, long time. My great-grandfather bought this car brand new, 1948, and he got the deluxe option with, and I don't know if you notice, and again, some of this stuff I'm going to point out is just based on basic research, but I've learned that stuff like this, these little fender ribs, the additional lights right there, and some of the other things on this, mainly cosmetic, not the grill necessarily, but the inline 8, all that stuff is kind of the deluxe version of this car. And as you noticed, it is also the fastback. It's not just the two-door, it's the two-door fastback, which also makes it kind of a novelty item, a very special vehicle. So it was quite a big deal back in the day. And a lot of you are wondering, if you haven't followed along with the shop project, the shop clean out project or anything, you might be wondering, well, why was it in the shop? What was wrong with it? And allegedly nothing was wrong with it. It just wasn't used, and it was parked in there, and it sat for a very long time, at least 60 years, if I had to guess. And while cosmetically it's a little rough, there is some rust on it. Most of what you see is dirt. The paint's actually in very good shape for a 1948 Pontiac. The biggest problem here, I hope there's not a critter in it, but the biggest problem is that the interior is trash. And it's just really gross and disgusting. But the door's still shut. Would you just look at it? I'm always amazed that the doors on this still shut. So that's the biggest problem, is just cleaning the interior and stuff. But I'm kind of brainstorming some ideas in my head to where I can get everything cleaned up and see what's salvageable and what's not. But that's kind of the biggest issue with it. So it was trashed, just on the inside, not on the outside. So I put out a video. Let me back up here. I got to watch where I'm going. There's some potholes around here from the gophers and moles and whatnot. I made a video just doing a walk around of this when it was still in the shop, mulling over whether or not I wanted to keep it, some of the things I was talking about. I got some good comments on that video. Several people expressed interest in it, in buying it, which is pretty cool. Several people said that it was really cool and they think that I should keep it, which of course I've made the decision to do so. Somebody suggested even that I look into a place called WD Detailing, and I was looking at them a little earlier. I kind of forgot to do it, but I was looking at them a couple hours ago. They got a YouTube channel here, and I'm definitely going to check out their channel because it looks like they do not just like washing stuff off and cleaning it, but also redoing interiors is what it looked like. But I'll give their channel a look. It's a good suggestion and I appreciate it. That'll give me some ideas on what I'm going to be getting into specifically with this and what all I can do. That'll be very helpful. So after that video, the most recent video outside of this one you're watching on this Pontiac is the 6th and final episode of the shop cleanout series, which is a lot less dramatic than I'm making it sound. And in the final episode, we got this out of the shop, and that video, I think because of the thumbnail, it got a lot of views. This Pontiac really attracted a lot of attention. And I got a couple comments of people saying, oh, my dad had one of these, or, oh, this is a really cool, rare car. You should keep it. If you decide to sell it, let me know. And I got a couple of comments also saying that it was a big mistake to leave this outside because it was going to get destroyed. Sure, yeah, it's going to get destroyed because it's not like they made these with a bunch of steel back in the days. This has 3 times the steel in it of a modern car. I'd have to leave it outside for at least 70 years before it showed any signs of, rust so bad that it required serious repairs. I don't see how it could deteriorate any more out here than it did in the shop. because while the body and the paint and everything are fair for the age and everything, like I just showed you, the interior is junk. It's a write-off. You have to completely tear it out, rebuild it, clean it, and I don't know how much of that's salvageable. Rodent urine is, it's corrosive, especially when it's just sat and absorbed into everything. It's nasty stuff. And I don't see how this is going to deteriorate any more out here than it would in the shop. But also, and this really did irritate me because it was kind of an ignorant comment, and some people might be asking, why are you getting so mad about it? It's because it was a stupid thing to say, quite frankly. This has way more steel in it than a modern car. If it can't survive sitting outside for the next couple, 3 years until I can get to it to restore it, then it's not worth restoring. If it's that fragile, it's not worth restoring. It's not going to hurt it to sit outside here in the rain. And even though we're in the winter sun right now, this north side of the building here, as you can tell, it's in the shade for the most part. The sun's not going to be on it too much any more than it would have been sitting in the building. And it had to come out of the building, and there was nowhere else for us to go with it. We're not going to put it in the big shed here. That just defeats the purpose. It'd just be in the way there. And so I understand some people might be a little irritated that I put it outside, and that's where it's going to sit. But it's off the ground, and it's already trashed. So sitting outside in the sun and some rain isn't going to hurt it anymore. And to help illustrate that point, I actually have a few more examples of old cars around here, just to show you that this sitting outside for a few years is not going to hurt it. Now we're in one of the canyons here, just south of the big building. We've been feeding the cows down here because of the snow and stuff. So before I show you this, it might upset a few of you, and I understand why, but it requires just a little bit of information so that you understand where I'm coming from when I want to show you this and explain things, okay? So the Pontiac that you just saw was my great-grandfather's. He bought it brand new and drove it for a few years. After he passed away, or I don't know if it was after he passed away, but basically when the car wasn't used anymore, it was parked in the Butler building and left. That is the case for several things around here. The previous operators of this farm were not very big on efficiency or organization or cleaning things up. They were very, very trashy people as a general rule. So when my great-grandfather passed away, the farm and the land and everything went to his 3 kids. 2 sons, 1 daughter, which would be my great-aunt, my great-uncle, my grandpa. My great-aunt and her husband lived out in Washington. She passed away couple years ago, and that great uncle still lives out there. And my other great uncle lives in town, not very far away. My grandpa still lives here on the farm. So the Pontiac is essentially kind of a communal thing. It's basically a farm vehicle, just because of the way things worked out. Eventually it came down the line to where it was my decision whether or not it stayed or went, because my dad didn't care. Okay, so what I'm about to show you are some old cars that are in worse condition than the Pontiac, and they are exclusively my great-uncles. Okay, they're not my grandpa's, they're not technically the farm's, they are exclusively my great-uncles. And that are these cars right here. Now, I haven't ever shown these on the channel because I don't come down in this bottom very much. So, just for reference, there's the old Sprig wagon up there. So, what we have here, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know that's an old GMC truck, of course. I'm not 100% what this one is. Somebody might know what this little car is. I want to say it's an Oldsmobile, but I don't recognize the letters. I just don't. I don't know. These cars have been down here forever. So we also have this. This is an Oldsmobile 88. I do not know what year. As you can tell, the rats have been busy. It's all still here. The big reason I came down here is to show you that is still plenty solid. There is so much steel in these old cars that they could sit outside for decades, which this one has, so is that one. And while they are rusty, they're not even near to the point where they're rusted out so bad you couldn't fix them. I actually have and we will look before we go. Okay, so right here, there's some rust here, yes, in the fenders and in the trunk area. That's not overly surprising. The bumper's got some rust in it. But ultimately, this is a very salvageable car. The nice thing about these is that even when you get spots like this, the surrounding area has so much steel in it that there's a lot of good material that you can weld to and build up and fix. So that Pontiac that everybody's freaking out about sitting outside and getting ruined, it would have to sit out here for decades before it finally deteriorated to the point where it couldn't be fixed. I mean, I would be long since dead by the time that car rusted away to where it could not be rebuilt. Because these olds here have stayed for, I mean, they've just stayed out here for a long time. I don't know how many years they've been out here. So this is an Olds. Yeah, it's an Olds. And somebody might know, Holiday is what that says down there. I'm not 100% sure what the deal is with the Holiday. I'm not familiar with GM products, let alone Oldsmobile. I know that this is obviously an 88 Olds, and this apparently is a Holiday. And as you can tell, it's also struggling inside. It's not in good shape. I'm pretty sure these are mid to late 50s, just based on a little bit of research that I did. Somebody who's more proficient in these vehicles will let me know for sure. And look, I'm not saying that these are perfect. There's plenty of spots where it's pinholed and rusted, and it would take a lot to fix these. But they're not so far gone you couldn't fix them. To me, and this is just me, the hardest thing to fix on a vehicle like this would be like the roof. That would be one of the hardest things to fix. And these are, I mean, they're plenty solid. They've got plenty of bounce left in them. Spaces that usually rust out, inner and outer fenders, places like here where stuff used to mount, and these mounting holes just get worn out with rust. That's not unheard of. That stuff is common. Most people know how to fix that. And you can even get replacement fenders and stuff sometimes still. The things that you don't want to try and fix are body pillars, the roof. This is my opinion, of course. Those are the things that are hardest to fix. So these 2-3 vehicles here should highlight to you that while, yes, the Pontiac is probably going to rust while it's outside, it's not going to rust that bad, and it's never going to rust bad enough to where it cannot be fixed. So yeah, I understand the concern, but it's just ridiculous to overreact like that. And I understand tone is hard to convey over the internet, but it really did kind of irritate me. Like, I'm being negligent. You know, most of the stuff around here was treated with negligence, and the only reason it's still here is because it was just so overbuilt with material back in the day that there's a lot of stuff that has to be whittled away at before it's to the point you can't do anything with it. It's not like a modern car. If a modern car sat outside like these did, they would have already rusted away to where you couldn't screw with them because there's just not as much material in them. I really don't know what this one here is. I've never really looked at these all that close. Olympia. Maybe. Is what that says there on the dash, I think. I have no idea what this is. If somebody knows what this is, you let me know, because I'm infinitely curious. Infinitely curious. But to anybody that is wondering what's going to happen to these cars, well, I don't know, because they are my great uncle's. So when he passes, they'll go to his kids, which are my cousins. One of them also lives in town. And if they don't want these, either to sell or to do something with, if they don't want them, I'll take them. Just because I don't want to see them go to a scrapyard or anything like that. And they might be kind of cool to mess with, you know. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it too much, you know, them going anywhere. It is a tragedy what happened to these. And I think I still have the motors that came out of these cars. I'm almost certain they were rocket V8s. That's why I think they were from the 50s. And I have I know where the engines are at for these, and we'll go look at them in a second. The engines are a write-off, but I know where the engines are at. And I don't know why, but it's a very common theme from my grandpa and my great-uncle both to let things sit and rot. Perfectly good running vehicles, park them, let them sit and rot. Pulling the motors out, that was a big thing. I don't know how many engines are scattered around here that they pulled out of stuff. And there used to be a lot more around here, believe it or not, but a lot of it was hauled for scrap. Not a lot of cars like this, though, so you can calm down if that was freaking you out a little bit. But it's, yeah, very common to have good running equipment parked so it can just deteriorate. Pull the motors out of it, maybe pull the transmissions out. Take it apart and then never put it back together, and it sits and rots. Just a very common theme, and it is not a theme that my dad and I are continuing. And there's plenty more things around here that are like that, that we will get to in later videos. But it used to be a lot worse around here. So anyway, back to the point. The Pontiac's not going to be hurt by sitting outside, because these cars ultimately are not hurt. They're really not. They will be... I mean, I'm not going to say they're just fine. Obviously, they have rusted. Obviously, there's work that needs to be done here, and it's pretty serious. But they're not so far gone you can't do anything with them. Now we're back up here at the big shed. Here's an old GMC, I think it's 1.5 ton truck. I don't know if there was something wrong with it when it was parked or not. I would wager probably not, because again, that's fitting in with the theme. Everything is there as well. The interior is trash. But man, it's muddy out here. I may point the camera at the ground by accident because I gotta watch where I'm going. But for reference, there's that New Holland feed wagon and the sprig digger. And we'll come up here into the big shed and we'll take a look at those old engines. Now there used to be 3. There used to be a lot more junk around here. And I don't know if you've looked in the background. In case you don't follow along with the channel and you're just here for the Pontiac and the related old cars and stuff, I understand. And you look around and you see all this junk iron and trash and stuff like that. I guarantee you it used to look a lot worse around here. We have been working to clean this place up slowly, but surely. We've been getting this place cleaned up, and it's been pretty successful. But, you know, it just takes a lot of time. So we'll come out here to the big shed where the birds are and the grain cart and probably the raccoons. Squeeze through here because I don't want to open the gate. Okay, so... Bur oak out of an old barn, not part of the barn, it was just piled in there. Man, this stuff's heavy, let me tell you something. So right here we have the Oldsmobile engines. I know for a fact there used to be 3 engines in here. One of them was a Rocket. This one's a Rocket G8 too. It's, well, there's the valley right there. It's rough. I'm pretty sure it's a write-off. I don't know that you could fix that even if you wanted to. This one here, I don't know if it's an Olds Rocket or not. Give me a second here. Let me look. No, I don't think so. There's no indentation in it. This might just be a generic. It's meant for a 4-barrel, and I don't know if the Olds Rockets came with a 4-barrel option or a 4-barrel conversion, but I'm pretty sure that intake manifold right here goes to that engine. The 3rd engine that was here was the best of the 3. It was an Olds Rocket. I know that for a fact because it still had the green paint on it. And okay, that engine... There used to be an old GMC V8 that sat right there next to that transfer case. It was out of an old GMC pickup from the late 70s. I think the pickup was a 79. I do not know what the displacement of the motor was. It hung at the entrance to the shop for a long, long time, and I got it out of there and moved it out to the building here so that it was out of the way. That pickup has been scrapped. It was scrapped a long time ago. So there were those 2. And then also where we have this lumber piled back here, there used to be an old Pontiac. It was a green Pontiac. So if you remember the silver streak that's on the other side of this wall here, it has that green rim on it. I am almost certain that green rim came off of that Pontiac. It was the same color as that rim and roughly the same colors as GMC pickup. That GMC pickup is my great uncle's. It's okay. So that and the cars down in the canyon, none of the stuff is for sale. I forgot to mention that, but none of it's for sale. So I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but it's not for sale. So that car used to sit right here. That Pontiac, it was a 4-door. That, my great uncle sold it. The good Olds engine and the blue GMC engine, sold them to some guys several years ago. I don't know that they were supposed to take the engines, but they did it anyway. And at the time, I didn't really care. So don't worry about all the rye that's on the ground. Oh, wait, actually, no, we probably should look at the rye that's on the ground. Are they getting into the grain cart again? What do we see? I don't see anything too obvious. Those rakins will not stay out of stuff, I'm telling you. But anyway, back to the point. Those 2 engines in that car were sold several years ago. They're gone. Not to scrap. I mean, those guys, I think they were going to restore the car. So again, if you were concerned about that, you don't need to feel too bad. But those engines there, I'm almost certain came out of the cars in the canyon. I don't know how they couldn't. That's the only thing that makes sense. Of course, there's a lot of stuff around here that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you take a car apart and then leave it to rot? I don't know. I would never do that. And then we also have other little things like these 3 white engines right here. My great uncle used to pump wells. And when one of the shops shut down, he managed to get all these engines. And they're Hercules engines. I mean, I know they say white, but it's white Hercules. If you know, you know. If you don't, you'll have to look it up because I'll waste a lot of time explaining it. But they're white Hercules engines, and they need work. I don't know if they ran or not when they were brought here, but this was a long time ago. So there's no shortage of engines, derelict engines, cars, car bodies, trucks and truck bodies, truck engines, all sorts of stuff around here, but none of it's usable. All of it requires work. And so I've got all this stuff, and one day I'd like to restore it all, but it's all still here. It's just scattered everywhere. So the reason I mention this, and I'm showing all this, is just to show how little care and how much neglect these machines and vehicles were treated with. And it just is to further highlight the point that leaving the Pontiac outside, the Silver Streak, is not going to hurt it. All right? It's really not. It can't hurt it any worse. This stuff has already been abused, neglected, mistreated, forgotten, abandoned, and disrespected. So me putting it outside, me leaving it for a few years, like 3 to 5 years. I don't even know it's going to be 5 years, but I'm saying 3 to be on the safe side. It's not going to hurt it. It's going to be fine. And you know what? If it rusts out a little bit and it needs some work, well, then we'll just add that to the project. As it concerns the cars in the canyon, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I know they'll go to my cousins when my great uncle passes. I'm not interested in trying to screw them right now, but I will keep them if I can. These engines, same thing. They might actually be salvageable. I doubt it, but they might be. You never know. It would certainly be interesting to take them apart, if nothing else, if they'll come apart. But, you know, we can always figure out powertrain options later when we go to restore stuff. And the other point I want to make, got to squeeze out of here real quick. The other point I wanted to make showing that is to show that that's one of the reasons I kept the Pontiac, is because all that stuff is still there. You can see it's right there. So the engine's there, the transmission's there, automatic transmission, what's it called? A Dyna Hydroshift? I think it's a Hydroshift. Somebody might correct me, but it's an automatic transmission. All that stuff is there. And even though I just showed you those engines out of those cars, I'm pretty sure the transmissions are long gone. So if I was to restore those cars in the canyon, then I'd have to find transmissions. Well, that might be easier said than done, like most things. They need engines too, so you never know. But there's all these projects around here. There's all this stuff to do. There's all this stuff to look at. And there's all sorts of things that aren't deteriorated as bad as the canyon cars, that Pontiac in front of you. But it's important. It needs work immediately. So that's why it's going to take time to get to the Silver Streak. But I have decided to keep it. I think it's a travesty what happened. It's only got like 67,000 miles on it. It's a shame. It really is. And maybe for a vehicle that old, 60,000 miles was the equivalent of like 180,000 on a modern vehicle. I don't know. But it was treated with a lot of disrespect. It should have been used more. It should have been treated better. I think it should have been driven longer and more enjoyment gotten out of it. But it wasn't. And so because I am interested in it, I think it looks pretty cool, and I think it would be really cool if it ran. So yes, I'm definitely going to keep it. I'm definitely going to restore it. I don't know when that's going to be, but it's going to be several years from now. Just reiterating an earlier point. And as for the other stuff around here, like I said, there's no shortage of freaking projects. There's all sorts of stuff that's a lot newer that needs more attention that we can use. There's some stuff that if I get it apart and find out it needs more work than we have time and money for, it'll go here with the Pontiac, and we'll get to it at a later date. So I got big hopes that as time goes on and we improve things around here on the farm and we get it to being efficient, that I'll be able to screw with some of these other projects and we can get a lot of enjoyment out of them. I can get the enjoyment out of doing it. You guys can get the enjoyment out of watching. So anyway, if you made it to the end, I know this was a long video, just going by the timestamp here on the phone, but I appreciate you watching. And I appreciate everybody showing an interest in the Pontiac. And you don't have to subscribe to the channel or anything. If you would leave a comment on any knowledge you have on these, any particular quirks they have, good places to get parts, things I need to look at, problems they may have had, then please leave a comment, send me an email, whatever. I will definitely appreciate that information. And one day we will get to that old silver streak, and we'll get her fixed up, shine the chrome, take her for a cruise. But it's not going to be for a little while. So until then, again, I appreciate you guys stopping by. I'm going to get off here. I got some other stuff to do. And we'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.